Okay, welcome back everyone. Nice to see all of you guys back from lunch. Perhaps you had some good food, some sweet drinks and stuff like this. Very easy to find food in Thailand, right? So we're going to start our afternoon off with some meditation. And since we're moving along in this course, rather than me continuing to give guidance every single time, what I'm going to do is just do the chanting, and you guys are welcome to join along. And I'm not going to do any guidance at all, just letting you guys to ease into the meditation and do the meditation yourself so you can get more and more comfortable of doing meditation alone without your teacher guiding you. So remember, you're going to focus on the breath, and whenever you see the mind moving off the breath, you cut that off and bring it back. Okay, so I'm just going to do chanting, meditate, and then we'll come out with the chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang sammuno Sakato rokavitu Anutero purisa Dhamma sati satatawa manusanam Bhutto Bhagavati อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะขวาโอตังมะขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, welcome back everyone. I'm going to share this topic with you of animal to human, the evolution of our consciousness. This is going to help you to see how the mind that you currently are experiencing has been evolving over time. That there's been multiple different existences where there was a body and there was a mind and they came together for a certain existence and then they separated and then there was a new mind and a new body, and each time your mind gets conditioned more and more to think a certain way, to be a certain way. And if you're not training your mind, it can become more and more unwise. It can become more and more dark. It can become to the point where it's conditioned more and more polluted. But if you're training your mind can evolve and become more and more human. And being able to see this evolution from animal to human will help you to be able to see the animalistic instincts that we have in the unenlightened state, so that it's not just eliminating craving, desire, attachment anymore and all the things that we're working to do, which is wise to be able to pay attention to those things, but you can see these animalistic instincts that we have in the unenlightened state, and it's important to learn what those are so you can shed those, because getting to enlightenment, on the path to enlightenment, is to become a better and better human being, where you're functioning as a human being. Some people think that humans are animals, but we're not. We're human beings. We're very different than an animal. Our mind has capabilities that an animal doesn't actually have, and we function in ways that animals don't function. Animals are in a certain realm by themselves, and human beings are in a different realm. We can experience enlightenment, where in an animal existence we can't. But there are certain things that our consciousness retains as part of having been in the animal realm and being reborn over and over and over again, that even when we come into a human existence, our mind can oftentimes retain some of the qualities of being like an animal. And this is why some people associate human beings as being animals. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to be sure you guys remember the problems that are associated with the mind. There's multiple problems that the Buddha discovered, but these are associated with this animal consciousness that I'm talking about. You guys have learned about craving, anger, and ignorance, or greed, hatred, and delusion. This is the 3 poisons, the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is the high-level way of describing essentially the 10 fetters, that the mind has these longing, yearning, this chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be permanently satisfying, chasing after our own selfish desires. And when the mind gets what it wants, it experiences happiness. But when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets that anger, that hatred, that ill will arises. And this is where we oftentimes growl and roar at another human being like an animal. Just like a lion is protecting its territory, and it might growl and roar if you come and mess with its women. The human being can do the same thing. It can growl and roar through our voice, and it's very much like an animal. Where this is all coming from is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. And this is why animals in that existence can't get to enlightenment, because they can't cultivate enough wisdom to be able to get to enlightenment. But as human beings, we can cultivate wisdom to eliminate our cravings and our anger. So this is the underlying problem. We just talked about personal existence view and conceit. So you guys should be familiar with that, since we just talked about it prior to lunch. This is also coming from the animal consciousness, where that mind wants the pecking order. You might be looking at other people and judging other people and trying to figure out where you fit in the pecking order, where you don't need that in the human realm. Our current life and our previous lives as well has conditioned our mind. When we were born into this world, we didn't have anger, hatred, and ill will. We didn't have hatred towards other beings. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital when we were first born hating other babies. We didn't go into the nursery judging other babies. We didn't look at their crib and we're like, my crib's better than your crib, or my little mittens are better than your little mittens, right? Or my hat is better than your hat. We evolve like this as we go through life. Because our cravings aren't getting fulfilled, then we get happy when we get them, and we get angry when we don't. And as those things are arising, it conditions our mind. So in our current life, and in our previous lives too, our mind is conditioned to think a certain way and function in a certain way, and we retain that. And then also, we're stuck in this continuous cycle of being reborn over and over and over again until we escape it. In getting to enlightenment, one will have escaped the cycle of rebirth. Now remember, everything about the teachings of the Buddha is independently verifiable, including the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence. You might not have the wisdom right now of how to independently verify whether you are in the cycle of rebirth or not, but as you grow and you develop on the path, there's ways for you to be able to independently verify this. And in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different ways that you can look at evidence to be able to see that there is a cycle of rebirth and beings are in the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life. And maybe the reason why is because you can't remember your past lives at this point. But as you're training your mind and you're uprooting this pollution out of your mind, it's potentially possible for you to be able to observe your past lives and be able to see that you have had past existences. And if that's occurring for you at any point, then your mind can remain stable because you understand that this is normal. But even as you're first getting started like this, what I do is I introduce you to the 5 realms of existence so you're aware of them, and we talk a bit about the cycle of rebirth in this particular talk. It's not until later that we really dive into it in detail, but in this particular talk I usually introduce students to it. But remember, in the things that I'm sharing with you, it's important that you don't believe what I'm sharing with you, that you can independently verify this as you journey on your journey to enlightenment. Now, let me just give you a couple of little things that you can look at to be able to start seeing the evidence of the cycle of rebirth. If you've ever experienced something called deja vu, this is where you're experiencing a certain thing right now and it feels utterly familiar to you, and you know you didn't do that thing in this particular life. This is residual memories that are bubbling up to the surface of your mind, and this is from your previous lives. Oftentimes people just push it to the side because it's usually like a 3-second thing, a 5-second thing, and you just kind of push it to the side. But this is the residual memories of your previous lives bubbling up to the surface of your mind. So this is some evidence for you to be able to see the cycle of rebirth. But there's much more things than just that. There's things like you can see individuals like a young child that's maybe 6 years old that has never seen a piano a day in their life, and they walk over to a piano and they can play masterful piano. This is because of the residual memories from their past life. And you can see these kinds of things, or maybe you've experienced these kinds of things. Like I mentioned, there's 17 different ways to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But what I'm going to do with you today in order to be able to start understanding this evolution of our consciousness from animal to human is I'm going to introduce you to the 5 realms of existence, helping you to understand what they are and what you experience in each one of these realms. And then we're going to move into talking about how one might observe their past lives and how this occurs, why this occurs, how you can use it to benefit you, and then how our mind moves from the animal to human. But first, let me introduce you to the 5 realms of existence. There's 5 realms that the Buddha talked about: heaven, human, afflicted spirits, animal, and hell. These are the 5 realms, and these beings are all experiencing different things. And while we call them realms, it's not like they're in really far distant places. It's not like the hell realm is deep down in the core of the earth and the heavenly realm is way up in the sky somewhere. These are essentially beings that have unique characteristics, and they're all living in the same time and space. So just like there's a human being sitting in this chair right now, if I got up and I left the doors open to the classroom, there could be a dog that comes in and sits right here, or there could be an ant or a mosquito or something like this. So even though we talk about these as realms, you shouldn't think about them as being in some far distant place. These hell beings are right in the same time and space as us. They're formless, but they're right in the same time and space as us. The same thing is true about the afflicted spirits. These are like ghosts. They're formless beings. They're all in the same time and space as us, including the heavenly beings. They're formless as well, but they're in the same time and space as us. So I'm going to walk you through each one of these realms and explain them to you, and then I'll let you guys ask any and all questions. And I realize, depending on what your background is, you may not be able to independently verify this right now, but for some of you, you may have actually encountered some of these beings. You might experience communication from some of these beings. Some people can even see some of these beings. And if you don't have that experience now, or you haven't had that experience now, as you start training your mind and you're lifting the pollution out of your mind, you might have those kinds of experiences where you can actually see these beings, or you can hear and talk to these beings. They're talking to you, they're communicating with you, because they're all in the same time and space. And this is one of the reasons why the Buddha taught this, is because if he didn't teach this to you, that this is true reality, that when you start hearing voices from these other beings in these other realms, but they're not an actual physical being, you might think you're going crazy. You might think you have schizophrenia or something like this. Or if you start seeing beings that other people can't see, you might think you're actually going crazy. So you can keep your mind stable and steady when you start experiencing communication from other beings, or when you start seeing these beings. You can remain calm and steady and stable because you'll understand what it is, because you understand the way the world is. So this first realm that I'll talk about is the heavenly realm. This is a formless realm where these beings don't have physical form. They're experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They experience happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. They don't experience the other types of feelings. And they can cultivate their consciousness to attain enlightenment, but they oftentimes lack motivation because they only experience the pleasant feelings, that they don't really have that built-in motivation that we have in the human world, where we experience painful feelings and pleasant feelings, as well as the neither painful nor pleasant. So those painful feelings for us and the neither painful nor pleasant tends to be the motivating factors that makes us interested to get to enlightenment. But these beings in the heavenly realm, they don't have that, so they tend to be complacent and lack motivation. Even though they can get to enlightenment, they oftentimes don't, and they're reborn down into these other realms. So the heavenly realm is not permanent. Sometimes people are taught that this is a permanent realm, but it's not permanent. You can see that through the natural laws, the universal truth of impermanence. You can see that everything around you is impermanent, and this realm is not permanent. And that's not the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha, to get to the heavenly realm. The Buddha is not teaching you to believe a bunch of things and then hope something good happens when you die and have this wonderful afterlife. He's teaching you how to get to peace and joy now in this life, so you can have a great life in this life. It's not about an afterlife. So this realm is there, and beings do exist in this realm, but that's not the ideal existence, because oftentimes those beings are complacent, they don't get to enlightenment, and they're reborn into other realms. The human realm, we experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So the pleasant feelings are like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. The painful feelings are like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. This is like shyness or being uncomfortable, where the feeling isn't painful, but it's not pleasant. It's just kind of like, you just kind of feel icky. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. We can cultivate our consciousness in order to attain enlightenment, and we tend to have motivation to be able to do it because of those painful feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant. So in a lot of respects, the human existence is the ideal existence. Even though it can be somewhat miserable in certain situations, it's actually the ideal existence because it's that misery and that sorrow and that grief and the despair that motivates us to be able to go on the path to enlightenment. Now, we're taught to look at the bright side of life, and that's wise, that we should always look at the positive side of life. But if you're honest with yourself and you look over certain parts of your life, you can see where you've experienced a certain amount of difficulties and struggles and a certain amount of misery and sorrow and grief and pain and displeasure. And it would be unwise to be interested to repeat that over and over and over again. But that's what we've been doing because our mind hasn't essentially cultivated enough wisdom to let go and move past the cycle of rebirth. So the human existence is the one that you guys are probably most familiar with because you're experiencing that now. Then there's the afflicted spirits. Some people refer to this as hungry ghosts. You might hear it referred to this way because these beings have a lot of craving in their mind. They experience painful feelings and neither painful nor pleasant. They don't experience pleasant feelings. It's just the painful ones and the feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their consciousness enough to attain enlightenment, but they can evolve, to the point of getting to enlightenment. This is what we might refer to as a ghost or a spirit. Different people refer to them different ways. They have extensive amounts of craving and desire attachment to things like people, places, and possessions. This is why people say, oh, my house is haunted. Really what that is it's a person who might have lived in the human realm. They're holding on, they're clinging, they're attached to this house, and they can't let it go. So they linger in that area. Or they might linger and hold on to certain people that they had relationships with. And someone might feel like they're being haunted by a ghost. Well, in reality, this person was a human being. They now have moved into this afflicted spirit realm, and they're holding on. They still have attachment. They have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment. Then there's the animal realm. In the animal realm, they experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their mind enough to get to enlightenment. They can cultivate their mind, but they usually do that purely through human interaction. That now that we as human beings have been interacting with animals so much, this is one of the reasons why we see the human realm expanding, because as the animal realm has shrunk, then the human realm has expanded, because as animals are becoming more and more wise, getting training through human beings, and they're dying, they're starting to come into the human realm. And this is why we're seeing this expansion in the human realm. People have told us, scientists have shared that 99% of the animals that once existed in the world no longer exist, that they're extinct, that what we see as animals in the world is only about 1% of the animals that once existed. So we would think that as an animal realm would shrink, we would see other realms expanding. And that's one of the reasons why we see the human realm expanding. With human beings having animals in our homes and things like this, and we're training animals and domesticating animals, they're becoming a little bit more loving, a little bit more compassionate. Whereas if they were left to their own devices, they wouldn't necessarily experience that. But even in wild animals, like if we take like a I don't know what they call a tribe of monkeys, a pack of monkeys. I don't know what they call them. I think they're a tribe. I think they consider them a tribe or a pack or something like that. But if you look at a pack of monkeys, there would be some that would be more bitter and harsh and hostile, and there'd be others that would be a little bit more loving and kind and gentle, even if they were just left to to their own devices. And this is why an animal can actually be reborn up into an afflicted spirit or human realm or even to a heavenly realm. This is how we get up into a human realm like this with an opportunity to be able to now get to enlightenment. So these animals, they tend to have no motivation because they can't really cultivate their consciousness, and they're essentially operating on survival instincts that they basically fight, kill, eat, sleep, play, have sexual contact to reproduce. This is essentially what an animal's doing. And this is what they do all day long, is just they sleep, they eat, they hunt, they kill, they play, they have sex. And that's really all that the animals are doing, just working on basic survival instincts. So from the animal realm, then there's the hell realm. The hell realm, these beings are experiencing exclusively painful feelings. These are formless beings that cannot cultivate their consciousness enough to attain enlightenment. They have extensive amounts of not only craving, desire, attachment, but anger, hatred, and ill will, and the ignorance, the delusion, and the unknowing of true reality. The Buddha describes the animal realm and the hell realm like a prison, that once we're in the animal realm and hell realm, it's very hard to get back out. But we will. After countless rebirths, we will ultimately make our way back out. Some of us may have been there. I know that I was in the animal realm countless times. I saw countless animal existences. So we can make our way out of that. But our consciousness is conditioned through these continuous rebirths over and over and over again. It's not the same consciousness. It's a different mind each time. So the way the cycle of rebirth works is you can think about it's a new body and it's a new mind every single time. So even though we call it the cycle of rebirth, this is just what people have been translating it as over multiple years. If you look at the original words of the Buddha in the Pali language, he uses the word samsara. You'll hear this used, where that's how he described what we're describing as the cycle of rebirth. But a better way to translate this word samsara is the cycle of new existence, because when you see the way the Buddha describes samsara, it's a new existence every single time. It's a new body and it's a new mind every single time. So I use the cycle of rebirth because that's what people tend to remember, and that's what a lot of other teachers use. But the way I suggest you think about this is the cycle of new existence, because there's really nothing that's actually being reborn. The way you can think about it is, say there's a cardboard box A, and this cardboard box is a certain size, certain color, certain shape, and a certain texture. And there's certain contents in this cardboard box. And those contents are like craving, anger, and ignorance, and residual memories. And now, as that life goes on, this cardboard box is impermanent. It's going to ultimately dissolve. And if there's still contents in the box, those contents have to go somewhere. So now those contents go into this new cardboard box. Now we've got cardboard box B. It's a completely different color, different shape, different texture, different everything. But the contents from cardboard box A have moved into cardboard box B. So this mind that you currently have and that you're operating from, it has contents in it from previous lives. And this is why you can experience things like deja vu. Or this is why a child that's 6 years old could play a masterful piano having never seen a piano before. Because the mind that they're currently experiencing has never seen a piano. But they have residual memories from their past lives that came through. That there was these contents in cardboard box A that moved forward into cardboard box B. So it's a completely new mind every single time, and it's a new existence. So while we call it the cycle of rebirth, there's nothing that's actually being reborn. It's a brand new existence every single time. And beings are moving in and out of these realms all the time. In each one of these realms, it provides you another opportunity to potentially cultivate your consciousness. So even going down into the hell or animal realm, this is where you're working to extinguish certain cravings. So let's just say there was a human being who had all kinds of sexual cravings, and they were just having sex with 3, 4, 5, 6 different people every week. Okay. Now, if they continue to have that all the way through their life, then ultimately they will most likely get reborn down into the animal realm. And now in the human realm or the animal realm, they're going to be having sex with all kinds of different animals or all kinds of different beings within their species. They're going to be having lots and lots and lots and lots of sex. And that's helping them to extinguish that craving to then ultimately make their way back up into potentially the human realm again with an opportunity to get to enlightenment. So this is how one will experience rebirth. Even though it's called rebirth, it really should be thought of as the cycle of new existence. And each one of these realms are designed to allow an individual to either cultivate their mind, if that's what they choose to do, or they might be using a particular realm in order to extinguish certain cravings. So I would like to see if you guys have any questions here on the 5 realms. And I realize that you might not have ways to independently verify this right now unless you've had activity in any of these realms or if you've interacted with beings in any of these realms. Because everything I teach you, I always share with you is independently verifiable. But here what I'm doing is I'm just introducing you to these realms. But I'll let you guys ask whatever questions you'd like to ask about these topics. Looks like Josh has a question and then maybe some other people as well. So go ahead, sir.
I have like 8. But start. Did the Buddha learn these realms, or were some of these come from any like Hinduism-ness?
I'm not sure what Hinduism teaches about the realms and things like this, but the Buddha taught this because this is the truth, and this is what he was able to independently verify. And I've also independently verified each one of these realms myself as well. So that's why I can teach it, and I can speak very clearly and explain to you exactly what these are because I independently verified them. But you will see in the teachings of the Buddha where he describes this, but I don't know if his description came from something else or not. The way that a Buddha teaches is they teach through their own direct experience. He would have needed to independently verify this in order for him to teach it. He wouldn't have just thought something up or invented it. He wouldn't have just believed something. He would have independently verified each aspect of his teachings before he shared it.
That makes sense. And the other question I had is, could it be possible that the reason some people feel more when they're in nature, they feel more of a connection to nature? Could that be like since we may have been used to be in the animal realm, coming to the human realm, that kind of connection? Does that make sense?
Yeah, we our minds get conditioned this way. One of the things we joke my son about when he's kind of lazy, we say, you must have been a sloth in your past life, right? He's just like moving around so slow. My wife and I, we kind of joke him sometimes. So yeah, we can have those different existences and it can condition our consciousness and we can function to a certain degree like that through these experiences. This is why like some people can be born into the human realm, and by the age of 12 or 18, they're showing signs of being a serial murderer. This could be like a lion or a snake that was born out of the animal realm, and now they're in the human realm, and their consciousness is still killing, right? And they're still doing that. Where also we can have beings that are coming out of the heavenly realm who they're born and they're more polite, they're more respectful. Right from the very beginning, you kind of see a little bit more brightness in this individual. This is helping you to understand how the consciousness are coming from different realms, ending up in the human realm. And this is why we can see people at different ages that are kind of functioning either like a hell being or an animal or even a heavenly being. You can see that they're either coming from those realms or they're going to those realms. You can see human beings that are functioning like animals, and you'll know like, whoa, they're most likely going to the animal realm after this. So this helps you to be able to understand all of that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Oh, we'll take this one over here.
Yeah, so you said that when you die and you get reborn, nothing is, it's like a new existence, right? Mm-hmm. So what about, because I've heard many times people say that when you die, the body dies, but the soul keeps on living. So how does that work.
If somebody talks about a soul in relationship to the teachings of the Buddha, they haven't studied the original teachings of the Buddha, because the Buddha never taught anything about a soul. He left it as an undeclared teaching. You can see in his teachings where he says, remember, what did I teach? I taught this. And he talks about the Four Noble Truths. And then he says, remember what I did not teach. I did not teach this. And he talks about a soul. He says, I didn't teach whether there is a soul or there isn't a soul. So when people are talking about reincarnation or a soul, the Buddha never taught these things, because the idea of reincarnation is that there's a soul that gets basically what's that? Yeah, passed on from one life to the next. And basically you're the same person, just with a different body, and there's a soul there. But the Buddha never taught this. But some people will teach this and they will attribute it to the Buddha. But he taught what we refer to as the cycle of rebirth, which is samsara. And I'm encouraging you to think of it as the cycle of new existence, because it is a new body and a new mind every time. I've even seen well-known Buddhist monks that talk about how the mind is permanent, but you can see in the original words of the Buddha where he specifically says the mind is impermanent. And you can see that very clearly through your own experience. And so there is no teaching from the Buddha that says there is a soul or there isn't a soul. So it's a new existence every single time. Mm-hmm.
Teacher, I assume that the heavenly beings are experiencing pleasant conditioned feelings, right?
Yes.
The ones that are not enlightened. Then what are the conditions causing those feelings, just out of curiosity?
They still have craving, desire, attachment, but it's not leading them towards painful feelings. So they're only getting the happy, pleasant feelings. Anytime there's any discontentedness in any realm, it's always craving, desire, attachment.
Yeah, I understand that. But like, for example, when a person in the human realm has this craving, desire, attachment, and it gets happy because that person wants ice cream and then gets the ice cream.
And then when we don't get it, we get the painful feelings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we need to do some battery swaps.
So yes, like it gets to painful feelings when they don't get what they want, but also like we hear stuff that makes us happy on the unenlightened state, like physical stuff. So it's difficult for me to picture, like to imagine what would be something that a heavenly being would want. What are those conditions?
Yeah, I don't have much memories of being in the heavenly realm. I've interacted with heavenly beings, and I may have been in the heavenly realm at some point, but I don't really have any memories of it. I just know what I know here, and you'd have to experience that realm to know. It doesn't really matter, truthfully. They don't have the six sense bases, right? They only have the consciousness. So I imagine it's certain thoughts and things that go through their mind. That's what I can assume, but I really don't know 100% because I don't have many memories from that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cecile? Not working?
This is actually Marisa's question.
Okay.
She would like to know where the heavenly, how do you pronounce that, realm?
Mm-hmm.
The heavenly realm or the hell one are.
They're not anywhere. They're everywhere. So these beings are amongst us. It's not like it's really far away somewhere. These heavenly beings are right here among us. The hell beings are among us. Depending on your decisions and how awake your mind is, if you're more awake, the heavenly beings will tend to be attracted to people who are more awake and more wise, where the hell beings tend to be attracted more to people who are in the darkness and doing, dark, evil, unwholesome things. But they're all within the same time and space as us. There's not one physical location that it's at.
Okay, so she says so maybe to be in the hell could be being on a war.
If you were in a war.
In a war, yeah.
So the Buddha does talk about certain things that lead towards rebirth in various realms, but it's not like an exact science. It's not like you can say, well, if you fought in a war, that means you're going to hell, right? Because this would be like, kind of like looking at your life or the totality of your life, and now somebody is judging you and deciding where you go. Because somebody could be in a war, maybe when they're 18 to 22 years old, but then after that, maybe they could change and they could improve and they could evolve their consciousness. So it's based on the condition of the mind at death. It's not like you look at your life and the totality of your life and then somebody judges you and you go to a good place or a bad place. It's about the condition of your mind at the time of death. So if somebody was in a war, and let's just say they were 18, 20 years old and they were aggressive and they were fighting and they were killing, and let's just say they died in that war. Yeah, at that point, we could say that potentially they went to hell or the animal realm or afflicted spirit realm. But for someone who's just been in a war and then they continue to live, they could evolve their consciousness from that point forward. And maybe they die 70s, 80s, 90 years old, and they completely changed. They're more loving, they're more kind. And even though they might have killed when they were younger, they're not doing that any longer. And they've been able to extinguish all that unwholesome karma from the past.
A human being can go to the heavenly or the hell realm and then come back to the human.
Yes, beings can move in and out of these realms. The Buddha talks about even how a hell being can go even into a heavenly existence, from the hell realm straight into a heavenly existence. He says it's very rare and it's infrequent that happens, but it is possible. So beings can move in and out of these realms at all different times. It's not like you have to start in hell and work your way up, but beings can move in and out of these realms at all times. Once you get to the first stage of enlightenment, and you die there, you're only ever going to come back to the human realm or the heavenly realm. You're not going to ever be reborn in the lower realms. This is one of the reasons why the first stage of enlightenment is so impactful, because you're never going to be reborn into the lower realms ever again. But these beings can be reborn in and out of all these different realms at different times. You're welcome. You have a question?
Yes. So, is there like a beginning, like so we have beings and I don't know, all kind of animals and things, so yeah, like where does the beings or the consciousness start?
Okay, so the Buddha describes the beginning of the cycle of rebirth as being undiscoverable, that we can't discover what the beginning was because none of us were there, at least in this existence, and we don't have memories of what happened. So he does share a creation story of how the world was created, but that's not to say like how we first started necessarily, how like the first being came into existence. But you can see him describing a creation story, and there's no way to independently verify it. But if you'd like to see it, it's in volume 11. I think it's chapter 58 or 53, somewhere around there. It's titled On Knowledge of Beginnings. That's the title of the chapter, On Knowledge of Beginnings. And he talks about just how the world got started originally. But when he talks about the cycle of rebirth, he says it's undiscoverable to discover like what point in time that it started, or exactly how it got started, or how this being ultimately started originally way, way, way back. And these things are interesting to talk about, and I get questions about these all the time, but really it doesn't actually change our ability to be able to get to enlightenment and purify our mind, because what happened in the past is in the past, and what may or may not happen in the future is in the future. Right now, in the present moment, and a being is in existence, their mind is discontent, and the teachings that the Buddha does teach, the core teachings, that's what's going to lead to the enlightened mental state and the improvement to the condition of the mind. But these things are always interesting to talk about. Usually students really sit up straight, a little bit straighter, when I start talking about the realms of existence and start asking a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. More questions?
Hello. So it is possible when we are searching for enlightenment, and then we're starting to discover our deep demons, and we actually have to go through hell to go towards light. That it's possible, right? Like the more we sort of, for my personal experience, it's like a couple of years ago, I went to a really spiritual place, and I have this awakening. And I started to do meditation and stuff like that. And then I started to discover myself have this deep desire of want to have sex. And the more I meditate, the more I want it. And, the more I cannot let go of that truth of, I just want to have sex. Oh my God. And the more I just need to come out of that thing and literally have to experience all the pain, all the desire that I needed to go through. Is that a, I don't know, and I think it eventually still have this sort of questioning, am I still on the path of enlightenment, or what do I do?
Yeah, so the way this works is, as we go through these different existences, it's like sweeping the dust under the carpet, because we don't have the wisdom of how to deal with these things. So we just kind of suppress it and put it under the carpet. And sometimes when you're meditating and you're training your mind like this, it's like taking back the carpet and the dust starts flying around. That's why you can have those urges for sex and things like that. But with enough wisdom, you can recognize what that is, and then you can see that's a craven, desire, attachment, and it would be unwise to go out there and just start having sex with lots of different people. But if we don't have wisdom, then we don't realize that, and we might actually do that. And then we experience the consequences and the results of having done so. And now when you go through that and you see what you're describing as hell and the darkness, then that can oftentimes be the motivators to realize how much you've hit rock bottom, and now you would like to work your way out of that. And that's where the path to enlightenment is well suited for someone who, they're done with the anger, they're done with the misery, they're done with the harshness and the hostility and the arguments, and they'd like to do something better. But you can experience this kind of almost like an unlocking of things that have been suppressed in the mind during this life, or even in previous lives as well. And this is where the residual memories from your past life start to resurface, because they're in there, they just haven't surfaced yet. And when you kind of lift off the carpet and the dust starts flying, that's some of the things that you can sometimes observe as your memories from your past lives.
Thank you. And is it possible how do these 5 realms live? Do they live in a harmony space, or can we exist in 5 realms at the same time, like a harmony, like a music, like some is bass, some is high pitch?
Each existence is a unique existence, and that being exists in that realm. So right now, this being here, it's this own unique being. This being doesn't exist in any other realms. But you may have existed in those realms in the past, and if you don't get to enlightenment in this life, then you will exist in those lives, in those realms in the future. But the goal would be to get to enlightenment in this life, and you can see that your mind's doing that, because you'll see the peace and the joy coming into the mind more and more and more, until ultimately it's been 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and your mind's completely peaceful, and you know that your mind has experienced enlightenment. There's teaching called dependent origination, where I teach this in other programs and other courses, where it's 12 interlinking steps that the Buddha teaches you and shows you exactly how one continues to be reborn over and over and over again. This is considered to be the highest, most ultimate truth of the Buddha, the highest natural law that he teaches. I don't teach it here because I just introduce you to the teachings, but in the retreat that I teach in January, I teach dependent origination, and I teach it in other programs too, because that's what's going to show you the step-by-step in exactly how beings come into the world and why we keep coming into the world. And you can see that when you dismantle that, not only will you eliminate the continuous rebirth, but you're eliminating that discontentedness as well. So it's like a 2-for-1 special, that if you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments that's producing discontentedness, those are the same causes and conditions that are producing rebirth as well. And this is why one who got to enlightenment won't experience rebirth ever again. And you can be sure of that because you'll see 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you have no discontentedness whatsoever. You've essentially extinguished the fire. As long as the fire has fuel, it's going to produce a spark. And that spark's going to land and it's going to light a new fire. So if there's a fire that has logs on it, that's the fuel. And as long as there's fuel, there's going to be a spark. And that spark's going to light a new fire. But if you get rid of the fuel, then there's no spark. So it's the same thing as that craving, anger, and ignorance in your mind. That's the fire. Those are the 3 fires that are burning. So when you get rid of that fuel out of your mind, then there's not going to be any spark that leads to a next life. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
You told Egna that in the heavenly realm there are beings that they are not enlightened because they still crave things, but this crave, they don't lead them to discontentment.
The pleasant feelings is discontentedness. When you're experiencing the conditioned pleasant feelings, that is discontentedness. So they are experiencing discontentedness, but it's all pleasurable. So that's why they don't have that built-in motivation that we tend to have.
Okay. So they're happy, they feel euphoria, but that's part of the pain.
Well, they're not experiencing pain in the heavenly realm, but it is part of the discontentedness where the mind's shaken up, and it's only conditional. And those pleasant feelings will come to an end because eventually their lifespan will be over and they will be reborn into another realm or another existence. The beings in the heavenly realm tend to have a very long, elongated lifespan. I think the shortest time frame I've seen is maybe like 500 years for a heavenly being, which seems like an enormous amount of time for us. But those beings live for a really long period of time. But eventually it does come to an end. And if they haven't gotten to enlightenment, they're going to be reborn into one of the other realms. And now they're not experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings anymore. They're experiencing the other ones because they haven't extinguished their cravings.
Okay. So you say they are here, all the realms. So in here, who's living at least 500 years?
Who's what?
Who is living at least 500 years?
The heavenly beings. These are formless beings.
Oh, they're formless.
Yeah, they're not human beings. Mm-hmm. We are all human beings. We have physical form. Mm-hmm. But heavenly beings, they're formless. Some people can see them and some people can't.
Have you seen them?
I've never seen a heavenly being, but I've communicated with them before. They've communicated with me. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask another question? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Why do they communicate with you?
Why do you communicate with people?
I mean, why they're not communicating with me?
I'm not sure. The different beings are going to communicate with different people.
What do they tell you?
What's that?
What do they tell you?
Oh, I think we could talk about something like this later. We only have a limited time. Okay. It's not important, but okay. I can share with you if you're really curious.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
Just come talk to me afterwards.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let me just check YouTube, see if we have any questions there. Nope. Okay. All right. So the way that you experience the memories of your past lives is it's like going up onto a high vantage point like this, that if you walked out of the front door of your house and you were on a certain street and you looked left and right, you're only going to see what's on that street. But if you move to a higher vantage point like this, and you looked over your town, you could see all the different streets and how they interconnect with each other, and even how one town connects to the other. So when you're training your mind and you're getting rid of these pollutions, you're moving to this higher mind, to this higher vantage point, to this higher consciousness. And now when you're looking over your life, you can see more of what's going on in this life, and sometimes people can observe their past lives too. This isn't something that I suggest you try to induce, but it can happen as you're lifting out the pollution out of your mind, where you might start having memories of your past lives. And if this occurs, you can just understand that it's past lives and just put it in the past. So if you have vivid memories of being murdered in the past, you can just put this to the side and don't think that it happened in this life, of course, because you're still alive, but don't allow it to shake up your mind. Or if you have vivid memories of any other thing that's happened and you know it wasn't in this life, just set it to the side, realize it's in the past, and let it go. While observing your past lives is interesting, and it definitely confirms for you the cycle of rebirth, it's not required in order to get to enlightenment. There's some people who will get to enlightenment and they will never see their past lives. But there are other ways to confirm the cycle of rebirth other than seeing your past lives. So some people will see their past lives and some people won't. If you do see your past lives, again, it's a confirmation for you, the cycle of rebirth, but it's not required, and there's really nothing else that it's really going to help you with. It can actually help you to understand some of your cravings that you're having in this life, but that's about it. At the end of the day, you're in a completely new existence. You're having craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you've got to eliminate it. You've got to extinguish it. So whether it came from another life or not, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that there's a mind here right now. It's got cravings, it's got other pollutions, and you've got to get rid of them. So observing your past lives, while it's interesting and it confirms the cycle of rebirth for you, and it helps you to potentially see where some of your cravings came from, which are previous lives, it doesn't change anything about your need to do breathing mindfulness meditation, to practice generosity, to cultivate loving kindness, to train on the Eightfold Path. All those things are still the same. If you do see your past lives, you're not a special person. You don't have to go out and, boast about this or blab about it to people. If you'd like to ever talk with me about it, you're more than welcome, and I'll help you if there's anything that you need help with. But really, it's just kind of confirmation of the cycle of rebirth, and it can help you to be able to see where some of your cravings come from. And that's it. So if you never see your past lives, no worries. No big deal. Just keep working the path and keep getting your mind closer and closer to enlightenment. That's what's important, is getting rid of these pollutions. The goal of the path to enlightenment isn't to see your past lives. That's not what the goal of this path is. The goal of this path is to eliminate your discontentedness. So just stay focused on that, and just know that it's potentially possible for these past life memories to come up in the mind, but that's not the ultimate goal. And it's not required in order to get to enlightenment. Okay, so now let's talk about this evolution of the consciousness from the animal realm to the human realm, because a lot of us have come out of the animal realm, and now being in this human existence, we retain a lot of the conditioning from that existence, those existences. So a vast majority of us are coming out of the animal realm into the human realm. The unenlightened human mind functions very much like an animal. We have a lack of memory. Oftentimes when our mind is in the unenlightened state, we work on a praise and reward system. This is why when we go do some training event, we get a certificate and we're so proud, and then that makes us want to do that again, right? Or if we do something good as a child and our parent gives us a piece of cake or a cookie, it makes us want to do that thing again, very much like an animal. We work on this praise and reward system. We also learn from our pack of like species, where some of our behaviors are instinctive, but many of them are learned behaviors. Just like a monkey learns how to be a monkey from other monkeys, and a lizard learns how to be a lizard from other lizards, we learn how to be human from other humans. And this is why if you grew up in a hostile household, you might have been hostile and bitter and harsh for a period of time in your life, because that's what you grew up with, and that was what was around you, and you kind of conform to that way of being. So we do learn, just like animals, from our like species. So we learn learn from other humans. And this is why the Buddha teaches you to cultivate wholesome relationships and be around people who are into wholesome things. Because if you cultivate relationships with people who are into unwholesome things, you're going to tend to do those kinds of things. Whereas if you cultivate wholesome relationships, you'll tend to do those kinds of things. We even have phrases in the human realm like, you're acting like an animal. Right? When somebody's being bitter and harsh and hostile and fierce, we might say, you're acting like an animal. Or we might say, you're fighting like cats and dogs. Right? This is one of the things that we say. Like, you're acting like an animal. You're fighting like cats and dogs. Or the other thing that you can look at is how humans are fascinated with animals. We're so fascinated with them. We even have zoos. We have scientists that study them. We wear animal prints on our body. I use that example all the time, by the way. You're the first one that's ever been wearing them in class. We have animal prints on our body. We have stuffed animals as a kid. We walk around with stuffed animals all the time. We have animals sleeping with us in our beds nowadays. Some people sleep with animals. We're so fascinated with animals because of our history in our past where we've been in these animal realms that we're just so enamored with animals. And this is the reason why, is because of our past existences. So the animal consciousness is preoccupied with craving, anger, and ignorance, and ego and a protection of the self, just like the unenlightened human consciousness. And when we're in those animal existences, we're doing, like I mentioned, we're doing the fighting, the killing, the playing, the sleeping, the sexual activity, the things like this. And we sometimes do those things in the human realm too. But you'll need to be able to see these things more and more as animalistic instincts. When your child does something, or your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your mom or dad, and you don't like it, you might growl and roar at them. You need to be able to see that as an animalistic instinct coming from your animal existences. And now you're looking to be more and more human. And this person doing something that you find to be disagreeable, you would like to be able to understand that that's your craving, that's your desire, that's you wanting things to be a certain way. And you need to purge that and get that out of the mind. And now you can cultivate the wisdom of impermanence, that of course mom is doing things differently. Of course dad is doing things differently because they've had different experiences than us. Of course brother and sister are doing things differently. With the ego in the mind, you'll tend to think that your way is the right way. That's the way the unenlightened mind works when it has ego. It thinks my way is the right way and everybody else's way is the wrong way. And if they're not doing it my way, they're doing it wrong, right? And now when they're doing it the wrong way, you might get angry. But if you can set that aside, get that ego out of there, and realize impermanence, that you can understand there's more than one right way to do things in the world. And if your mind maintains this craving, desire, attachment, then you might become bitter and harsh and hostile. And you need to shed that hostility and that bitterness. Okay? So the path to enlightenment is evolving from this animal consciousness to this human consciousness, becoming a better and better human being, shedding these difficulties of the animal realm, because being an animal is not fun. Sometimes we might think like, oh, it'd be wonderful to be a bird and kind of fly around and see everything. No, it's really hard to live out there in the wild, right? They have to kill sometimes in order to eat. They don't have water when they would like water. They don't have a comfortable place to live. They have a very short lifespan, right? So we have these kinds of things where we're fascinated with animals, and yeah, we might imagine, wow, it'd be really interesting to do that thing, but understand that you're in the human realm and this is the ideal existence, and you can become a better and better human being. Enlightenment ends the cycle of rebirth through humans learning to become more and more human, experiencing better existence by peacefully coexisting with other beings. Animals oftentimes can't peacefully coexist with each other. Even if you have like a herd of animals or a pack of animals, they might get along a little bit, but then eventually it's only a matter of time before a fight breaks out amongst these wild animals, where that's what's happening in the unenlightened mind. But we can get to a point where everything's harmonious. I've never seen an argument here at this temple. I've never seen one. Every time the students come, you guys are always polite and kind and friendly and respectful. I've never even seen anyone raise their voice here at this temple and yell and shout and holler. I've never even seen it, because you guys treat each other very warmly and very lovingly. And you can do that here, and you can learn how to do that elsewhere too, where you're just always treating everybody that way. And that's what we can do when we evolve and we have wisdom and we train our mind. But if we hold on to these animalistic instincts, then we're not going to be able to do that. The condition of the planet and what we see with our environment is a function of the craving, anger, and ignorance in the mind. That if we have a craving for permanence and we have this lack of wisdom, we'll go out into the world and we'll pollute and we'll make unwise decisions about the products that we use and the way that we interact with the planet. And over the last 100 years, we spent a lot of time making unwise decisions related to our environment. And now we're starting to see that that's causing us a lot of difficulties. And as we're moving to this higher consciousness, not only is it wise to pay attention to our own consciousness, but the way that we make decisions in the world and how we interact with the planet. This is important too, to make sure that we're not polluting the planet. This is something that we can pay attention to as we train our mind about how we interact with the planet and what products we use and how we use them. We're essentially either walking towards the light or we're walking towards the darkness. Which direction we walk is completely our choice. We can walk towards the animal realm or towards the hell realm or towards the afflicted spirit realm, but that's unadvisable. But we can also walk towards this better way of life where we can train our minds and we can shed these animalistic instincts. So which direction we walk is totally up to us, and we can become more and more human through training our mind and shedding these animalistic instincts. Is there anything you guys would like to ask or any questions you would like to ask? Okay. So tomorrow, what I have to share with you guys is we're going to do loving kindness meditation in the morning. Then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate fears. I'm going to first make sure you understand what's causing your fear, and then we're going to talk about how to eliminate it. By the time you get to enlightenment, you have no fear whatsoever, including the fear of death. So I'm going to teach you how to eliminate your fears. Then after I do that, I'm going to teach you about this topic of God's creative action. You have free will, that some people are interested in having a relationship with God, but they may have been taught some things that are hindering them from being able to do that, and they might have been taught things that are actually unwise. Or you might not be interested in having any relationship with God whatsoever, and that's fine. You can actually get to enlightenment either way. But depending on what you've been exposed to in the past, you might have an aversion to this being, you might have anger towards this being, you might actually be doing things that are hindering you in your relationship with this being. So whether you are interested in a relationship with this being or not, I can teach you how to get to enlightenment either way, because your enlightenment isn't dependent on God. Your decisions is what leads to your enlightenment, not God. But if you're interested in this relationship, I'll teach you how to have a better relationship with this being. But if you're not interested in having a relationship with this being, I'll teach you how to do that too and still get to enlightenment. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you in the morning. And then after the morning, in the afternoon, I'm going to teach this meditation of how to eliminate sexual cravings, because this is a specialized meditation. If you're having a lot of sexual cravings, there's a meditation to help you with that. And then I'm going to teach you the meditation to realize non-self. So we'll be focused on these for the afternoon tomorrow, is learning these two meditations and then actually doing it. Okay? So I'll just end here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your questions. Perhaps I'll see you guys tomorrow. If not, have a lovely, wonderful rest of your day, and tomorrow, whatever you choose to do. So be well, and we'll see you next time. Okay? Take care. Take care. Yeah, we start each morning at 9 o'clock.